It's 5:47 a.m., 85 nautical miles north of La Guaira, Venezuela. The USS George H.W. Bush cuts through Caribbean waters under a sky that hasn't decided if it's night or morning yet. 3 destroyers, Porter, Carney, Mason, hold diamond formation around her, engines humming low. On the bridge, the watch is quiet. Coffee. Radar sweeps. The kind of morning where nothing happens. Then the radio crackles. Bridge, combat, single airborne contact, bearing 178, speed 380 knots. No IFF. The officer of the deck sets down his mug. Origin? Venezuelan coast, Maiquetía. 1 jet. Could be routine. Venezuela's been flying patrols all week, making noise about American carriers in their waters. Theater mostly. But this one isn't circling. It's coming straight at them. The contact drops through 2,000 feet. Su-30 flanker. Russian-built, twin-engine, the kind that can carry anti-ship missiles and still have fuel to loiter. No radio call, no transponder. Just speed and a bearing aimed directly at the strike group. On the flight deck, a plane captain glances south. The horizon's starting to glow amber, and cutting across that light, low and fast, is a thin contrail. Contact now, 15 miles. The officer of the deck reaches for the comm. General quarters, condition zebra. The alarm pulses through the ship, hatches slam, boots pound, sailors snap into motion. Down in the Combat Information Center, the display shows one red symbol crawling toward them. At 12 miles, it banks hard right, then snaps left, an aggressive weave meant to get noticed. 8 miles out, the flanker pulls into a vertical climb. Afterburners ignite. The jet climbs like it's clawing toward orbit, trailing smoke that catches the dawn light. For 3 seconds, silence. Then the radar operator speaks, voice tight. Bridge, combat, second contact, bearing 182. Pause. Third contact, bearing 190, all Venezuelan, all inbound. The captain steps onto the bridge, shirt half tucked. He reads the display and nods once. Looks like they want our attention. 3 jets, all closing, all from Caracas. But here's the thing about carrier strike groups, they don't chase threats. They don't flinch. They watch, record, and wait to see who blinks first. By 5:52, 3 red icons drift toward the blue diamond on the screen. 8 miles. 7. Still closing. The tactical action officer leans over her console. Lead contact bearing 176, altitude 4,000. The other 2 trailing loose. All squawking Venezuelan military. No response to hails. The captain nods. They monitoring guard? If they are, they're not talking. Classic gray zone play. Get close. Don't escalate. Make it look routine while doing everything but. Air boss, bridge. I need alert birds airborne. Copy. Hornets are spotted on cats 1 and 3. On the flight deck, yellow shirts move fast. 2 FA-18 Super Hornets sit on the bow catapults, canopies down. Pilots, strapped in. Jet blast deflectors rise like steel shields. The catapult officer drops to one knee, touches the deck, sweeps his arm forward. The cat fires. The Hornet blurs off the bow, 400 miles an hour in 2 seconds. Then airborne, climbing into a sky that's half night, half dawn. His wingman launches 15 seconds later. Strike, Hornet flight airborne. Copy, picture. 3 bandits, bullseye 180 for 10. The pilot banks left, radar painting 3 tight returns. Not running, not evading, just coming. 5 miles out, the lead flanker rolls inverted. Contact 1 just went belly up. Then it dives. Full nose down, afterburners lit, straight toward the destroyer Mason. On the Mason's bridge, the watch officer stares at the jet plummeting toward her ship. The phalanx CIWS rotates automatically. That mechanical whine, the one every sailor knows. The flanker pulls out at 400 feet. The shockwave hits the water like a fist. The destroyer rocks. Sailors drop instinctively. The jet screams past the bow with maybe 200 feet of clearance. Then it's gone, climbing vertical, afterburners painting the sky orange. Log it, the captain says. Time, distance, bearing. Up at 12,000 feet, the Hornet pilot watches through his helmet display. Strike, Hornet. That was deliberate, unsafe airmanship. Copy. Maintain shadow. Do not engage. Shadow. Follow. Watch. Don't react. Contacts 2 and 3 split formation. One angles toward the carrier, the other loops wide. Bridge. Combat. Contact. 2 committed on the bush. Range 4 miles. 4 miles at 400 knots. 30 seconds. The captain keys the comm. All stations maintain heading, maintain speed, nobody moves. Because here's the thing about American carriers. They don't turn, they don't run, they don't flinch. The Venezuelan jet closes. 3 miles, 2, 1.5. On the flight deck, refueling hoses snap. Deck handlers freeze. Launch crews glance skyward. 1 mile. The phalanx on the bush rotates, tracking. Locked. Ready. Waiting for one command. The command doesn't come. The jet screams over the carrier's starboard side at 300 feet. The roar is deafening. The shockwave ripples across the deck. Then it's past, climbing hard. Logged? Yes, sir. The Hornet pilot's voice crackles. Strike. Overflight. Confirmed. Clearance estimate 250 to 300 feet. Roger. Continue shadow. The third jet closes from the east. Now they're all circling, weaving, testing, seeing how far they can push. The captain watches the display, arms crossed. His voice is steady. They're not here to fight. They're here to film. The tactical officer glances up. So what do we do? Nothing. The captain's eyes don't leave the screen. We let them have their footage, then we show them what discipline looks like. Because power isn't about who shoots first, it's about who doesn't have to. This isn't the first time Venezuelan jets have played this game. 3 weeks ago, a pair of Su-30s shadowed the USS Ronald Reagan for over an hour. Before that, harassment of a Coast Guard cutter. Last month, Caracas accused Washington of violating sovereign airspace 60 miles offshore, well outside any legitimate boundary. The pattern's clear. Push, probe, test the limits. It's what analysts call gray zone tactics, aggressive moves that stay just below the threshold of war. No shots fired, no declarations made, just enough pressure to send a message without triggering a response that ends in wreckage. Part of it's political. Maduro's government is isolated, cash-strapped, leaning into anti-American rhetoric to rally support at home. Buzzing U.S. warships makes for good propaganda. It shows strength. It plays well on state TV. But there's another layer. The Caribbean's a highway. Cocaine moves north from Colombia. Weapons flow south. The U.S. Navy runs Operation Martillo, choking off trafficking routes. Venezuela doesn't like that. Some of those routes run through their waters. Some of those profits end up in the wrong hands, or the right ones, depending on who you ask. So when a U.S. carrier shows up 85 miles from their coast, it's not just about sovereignty. It's about control, about showing Venezuela still has teeth. The Su-30 flanker is one of those teeth. Russian-built, twin-engine, capable of carrying anti-ship missiles. Venezuela bought them over a decade ago from Moscow. The jets are formidable when properly maintained, but maintenance is a nightmare under sanctions. Every sortie burns flight hours they can't replace. Every aggressive pass risks an incident they can't afford. The executive officer leans over the display. They know we won't shoot. The captain nods. That's the gamble. So what stops them? Same thing that stops us from lighting them up. The captain's eyes track the symbols. Judgment. Because that's the paradox. You show strength by not using it. You win by making the other side back down first. But right now, with 3 fighters still circling, one thing's already clear. The bush isn't moving, isn't turning, isn't giving them the reaction they came for. And that silence is starting to become a problem for pilots who thought intimidation would be enough. At 5:58, the second Su-30 breaks formation. No warning. It just rolls left and drops, diving toward the carrier like gravity got personal. Contact 2 descending rapidly, 3,000 feet and dropping. The tactical officer's hand hovers over her console. He's committed. The captain doesn't move. Hold course. 2,000 feet, 1,500. The jet's nose points almost straight down, afterburners lit. 1,000 feet. The phalanx rotates, barrel tracking. Sensors locked. One command away from engaging. 500 feet. The pilot pulls out at 300 feet. So low the exhaust washes over the carrier's island, rattling antennas, whipping flags. The roar is physical. Sailors feel it in their chests. Then it's past, climbing vertical, afterburners streaking orange against pale blue sky. Jesus! The captain's voice cuts through. Logged? Yes, sir. 300 feet. Up at 15,000, the Hornet pilot watches it unfold. His helmet camera captures every frame. Strike, Hornet. That was inside the safety envelope, way inside. Copy. Continue shadow. Do not engage. The third jet banks hard from the east, tracking straight for the destroyer Carney. 3 miles. 2. 1.5. The ship's fire control radar locks. The 5-inch gun mount rotates, tracking. The phalanx spins up. That high-pitched whine. Hold fire. Weapons tight. The Venezuelan pilot has to see it. Every weapon system tracking him. One command and he's debris, but he doesn't turn. 2,000 yards. 1,500. Then he pulls up hard, belly flashing in morning light, engines screaming. He rolls inverted and levels just above the Carney's mast, close enough that sailors see the pilot's helmet, the squadron markings, the empty hardpoints. Wake turbulence rocks the destroyer. Coffee spills. Then the jet's gone. In CIC, the captain watches the 3 symbols regroup at 8,000 feet. The tactical officer glances over. Sir, they're getting closer every pass. I know. At some point, the captain interrupts, calm but firm. One of them's going to realize getting close isn't the same as winning, and when that happens, they'll go home. And if they don't, the captain's eyes stay locked on the display. Then we'll cross that bridge, but we're not crossing it first. Because intimidation only works if the target reacts. The Bush hasn't. No evasive maneuvers, no radar locks, no course changes. That's the discipline that separates a superpower from everyone else. By 6:03, the Venezuelan jets are running out of moves. They've buzzed the carrier, dived on the destroyers, circled the formation. And through it all, the Bush hasn't moved an inch. The lead flanker makes one more pass, wide, higher, almost lazy. Like the pilot's testing whether there's anything left to prove. There isn't. Bridge, combat. Contact 1, turning south, speed decreasing. The tactical officer watches the symbol peel away. He's breaking off. 30 seconds later, the second jet follows. Then the third. All climbing back toward 8,000 feet, throttling back, turning toward the Venezuelan coast. In CIC, the tension starts to unwind. Slow exhales, hands unclenching. All contacts heading 175, range 12 miles and opening. The captain keys the comm. Hornet flight, continue shadow, maintain 20-mile trail. Copy. Hornet has visual on all 3, they're regrouping. From 15,000 feet, the pilot watches the Su-30 slide back into loose formation. Not running, just cruising. Like it was a training sortie and now it's time to head home. At 6:08, the lead pilot breaks radio silence. Not in English, but the Hornet systems pick it up. Makatia Tower, flight returning to base. Mission complete, no incidents. The pilot keys his mic. Strike Hornet, Bandits RTB, they're calling it clean on their end. The tactical officer exhales. They're spinning it already. The captain allows a thin smile. By tonight, they'll be heroes on state TV. And we just let that happen? We don't let anything happen. We document it. Every second, every unsafe maneuver. They'll have their propaganda. We'll have the truth. At 6:12, the Hornets break off at 30 miles, banking back toward the carrier. The Venezuelan jets fade from radar. The captain straightens. Secure from general quarters. Return to condition 3, full debrief in 20. On the flight deck, the Hornets trap aboard. The pilot climbs down, sweat streaking his face. An intelligence officer's waiting. Did they exhibit hostile intent? The pilot pulls off his gloves. Hostile? No. Reckless? Absolutely. That dive on the Mason was inside 500 feet. If he'd misjudged, we'd be pulling wreckage out of the water. Did you feel threatened? He pauses. I felt like I was watching someone play chicken with a freight train. They wanted a reaction. We didn't give them one. By 6:30, the strike group's back to normal ops. The Bush steams north-northwest at 20 knots. Course unchanged. Speed unchanged. Like nothing happened. By midday, the incident's making waves. In Caracas, Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez holds a press conference. Behind him, a screen shows grainy footage of the Su-30s. He gestures emphatically about imperialist provocation and heroic defense of sovereign airspace. The narrative's simple. Venezuelan pilots intercepted a U.S. carrier operating dangerously close to their waters and forced it to retreat. Except the Bush never retreated, never turned, never altered course by a single degree. But facts don't matter when you're playing to a domestic audience that wants to believe. In Washington, the Pentagon's response is surgical. A spokesperson reads a statement. Venezuelan military aircraft conducted unsafe and unprofessional intercepts of U.S. Navy ships in international waters. At no time did the USS George H.W. Bush deviate from course. Venezuelan aircraft came within 300 feet of US vessels, violating safety protocols. No threats. Just facts and timestamps. Behind the scenes, analysts in Norfolk scrub through footage from the Hornets. They measure distances, plot trajectories, catalog every maneuver. The radar data shows the Venezuelan jets flying well outside their claimed airspace. One analyst zooms in on thermal imagery. The lead Su-30 passes at 380 feet, inside the safety envelope by a factor of 3. His supervisor nods. This wasn't a navigation error. This was calculated. Calculated. Venezuela planned this, timed it, probably had cameras rolling before they launched. But why? First, domestic politics. Maduro's struggling. Inflation's crushing. The economy. When you can't deliver prosperity, you deliver nationalism. Buzzing a carrier plays well on state TV. Costs nothing but fuel and risk. Second, regional signaling. Venezuela has been working with Russia, Iran, China, countries that want the US out of the Caribbean. Aggressive intercepts say, we're not afraid, we're still in the game. But gray zone tactics only work if the other side plays along. The US didn't. In the Bush's ready room, the squadron commander briefs air crews. What happened wasn't about combat, it was about control. They wanted us to flinch. We didn't. That's the win. A pilot raises his hand. What if they go hostile for real? The commander's blunt. Then rules of engagement kick in, and this gets a lot shorter. But until they cross that line, we hold. Because the second we overreact, we lose the narrative. Modern warfare isn't just missiles, it's cameras, timestamps, press releases. The Venezuelan pilots think they won, but the US got proof, evidence, and a reputation for restraint. When you stay calm while someone else loses theirs, you don't need to say a word. So here's the question. If you were on that bridge, watching 3 foreign jets diving toward your ship at 400 knots, what would you do? Would you trust the doctrine, hold your fire, and let discipline do the talking? Or would you light them up, lock them with fire control radar, put a warning shot across their nose just to make it clear you're not playing? It's easy to say stay calm when you're watching from a screen. It's harder when the afterburners are screaming overhead. But that's the difference between power and panic. The USS George H.W. Bush didn't fire because she didn't need to. Her weapons were ready, her crew was trained, and her captain knew that sometimes the strongest move is the one you don't make. Venezuela wanted a reaction. They wanted footage of a carrier flinching, turning, and doing anything that could be spun as aggression. And they didn't get it. And that silence sent a message louder than any missile could. You don't need to shout when you're already the loudest thing in the room. If you made it this far, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real stories from the fleet. Share this with someone who thinks carriers are just big targets. And if you'd like to support the channel, consider joining Fleet Intel. Early access, behind-the-scenes breakdowns, direct line to more stories like this. Click join and come aboard. Because keeping calm under pressure isn't just a tactic. It's what separates a superpower from everyone else pretending to be one. Stay sharp. And remember, when the stakes get high, the winners are the ones who never had to prove it. See you in the next one.